What's going on, everyone? Today we are talking all things about the 2025 Cleveland Browns, including asking the question, why does the fantasy world hate David Njoku? If Jeudy has potential for another wide receiver one caliber season, if we can expect big things from Quinshon Judkins in year one, and if any of these sad quarterbacks have a chance to actually start double-digit games, all that and much more here on today's Fantasy Life show. But I cannot accomplish all this alone, and accordingly joining me is Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, all-around rockstar Dwain, the Rock McFarland. And Dwain, let's kick things off with a tight end, one of the only teams that we will be doing this for, because he might very well be the most fantasy relevant player on this sad excuse for a football team. So, I'm sorry, it's a little harsh, but come on, guys. You've seen the freaking Browns QB jersey. That thing is running out of room in a hurry. But man, in that pile of trash, there is one star, and that is Mr. Njoku. Back-to-back top 5 finishes in fantasy land, Dwain, all right? And that has been, let's face it, with quarterbacks that have not been great, okay? Yes, we did get a split with Joe Flacco, and we had Jameis Winston doing his thing for a few weeks last season, but it's not like that we were exactly getting great quarterback play from Deshaun Watson and others. In fact, it was near the bottom of the league. So currently going off the board as a tight end 11, sometimes even tight end 12 in drafts, is David Njoku someone you have prioritized in early fantasy land?
Well, yeah, because the price is ridiculous. You're getting him outside the top 12 tight ends. I get the argument for upside and all these things, but at some point, we have to look ourselves in the face and say, David Njoku, even with bad quarterbacks and some of the other issues, can still have upside, especially at the price tag that you're getting to draft him at. You look at him just in our projections, Ian, and you're using that to help guide your drafts. You're going to draft David Njoku every time. He projects as the tight end 6 right now. I think Friedman's projections might even be one higher. I think he might have him projected as tight end 5. Then we look at the underlying talent profile for him, Ian, over the last 2 years, his 2 best years from a targets per route run standpoint, 23 and 24%. Guess what? Those are top 3 tight end worthy. So the dude's out here doing his job. He'll be 29 years old whenever this season kicks off. Yards per route run went down a little bit last year to 1.33, but he's been before that pretty much been like a 1.5 to 1.7 player. So when you look at the underlying data points, they point towards a guy that he can certainly do it. I get it. There are questions around the quarterbacks, but the way I kind of look at it, Ian, is Joe Flacco is one of the guys that he went bananas with at the end of the 2023 season. So if somehow Flacco manages to stay out there, that's going to be a good thing for him. And at least behind Flacco, we've got options now. It's not like they have one and it's like, well, Flacco didn't work and we hope this other guy works. They've got Dylan Gabriel. Maybe it can be him. They've got Shedeur Sanders. Maybe it can be him. Guessing Kenny Pickett gets cut, even though we had the minicamp news that he was one of the first guys out there taking the first team reps. So we'll have to see how it works out. But I just feel like there's at least a chance that if Flacco is not the guy, or at some point they go away because they're not winning, we at least have 2 guys that could win the job versus one. I know that doesn't necessarily just mean that, hey, we're guaranteed to get one. They could both be busts, but I think it's a little bit of a silver lining. The other thing is this. We know that Kevin Stefanski in the past has shown to be more of that run balance style. Once Deshaun Watson came over, they really moved to this pass first offense. I really wanted to kind of rein in the passing attempts and give more to the rushing attempts. The only challenge is their win total is so low. That's also part of the model because we look at drop back rate based on if your win total is low, we expect you to be trailing a lot, and that does force more passing. But I do think another potential out here is that, Kevin Stefanski is a good enough schemer, especially earlier in the year with Joe Flacco, that the Browns just overperform a little bit, right? They win a few games that they shouldn't. They win more through efficiency through the air, not so much through the volume. I do think that David Njoku is one of these guys. He's still the athlete that can be a mismatch pretty much against any linebacker or safety in the NFL, whether it comes down to his speed or just him using his size to really help create that advantage. He's a good player after the catch, as far as Yak goes. And to your point, you brought this up. That insulates him a little bit as far as, because as quarterback play degrades, the bigger issue is the targets down the field. The targets that are closer to the line of scrimmage don't always get impacted as much. And if we look at Njoku over these last 2 years, Ian, 5.6 and 4.8 average depth of target. Now, that's not the greatest thing ever. Typically, guys that are targeted in that range, they're not going to score a lot of touchdowns. So we're not projecting a lot of touchdowns here for Njoku, but definitely the targets, the receptions, the yards should all be in play. But if the offense surprises and we get a little more efficiency, maybe that helps out in the touchdown department. Njoku's not a guy we would be coming out here and saying, oh my God, he's a top 3 tight end. The problem is he really should be a mid-range tight end 1, and he's being treated as a high-end tight end 2 right now in fantasy drafts, and that's just a big discrepancy.
And again, just the fact he's coming off back-to-back top 5 finishes without a good QB in this exact same offense with Kevin Stefanski. We'll talk about Harold Fannin in a second, but for me, man, it is that lower average target depth. Njoku is more or less the check down option in this offense, and we do see this from various tight ends, all right? If we're talking about someone like, say, Jake Ferguson, who makes a lot of his money scoring touchdowns and then going down the seam, for Dak Prescott, that's a much higher degree of difficulty to ask from a potentially bad quarterback like Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. God forbid Kenny Pickett's going to be out there. So with Njoku, I do just feel better about the chances of him getting a bunch of screens, which is a big thing that goes on there, and those checkdowns, and then just letting him use his God-given talents to be that monster after the catch that we've seen. Certainly is someone that can stretch the field as well. I think we'll see more of that, hopefully, as long as Joe Flacco is under center. But yes, Njoku, easily my most drafted tight end of this entire offseason. Then I don't really plan on slowing down. That said, Dwayne, they did use a day 2 pick on Harold Fannin, who had quite a few yards during his final season at Bowling Green. Personally, I'm not too worried here. I just think that Fannin, his more so, scenario is going to be as a big slot. Maybe he will be the tight end 2, put his hand in the ground and stuff. I'm not saying he can't do that. I know he's graded out very highly in the supermodel, but just again, this is an offense that, hey, early on it was Njoku, Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant's been in there, former, Mackey Award winner, MF and Mackey winner. Shout out Evan Silva with that. But it's just a situation where I don't see Njoku leaving the field for Fannin. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'll work in there, he'll get some targets, I'm sure. But do you see Fannin and Njoku's skill sets overlapping at all?
I mean, there's always a chance. Like, I do think that's another factor that's impacting David Njoku and where he's going in drafts. And you mentioned Harold Fannin Jr. in the rookie supermodel, like actually had the highest production rating that we've ever seen in the model. I would rate him as the 3rd best tight end in this class, even though he's going to have to start off behind David Njoku. So, I mean, there's always a chance, man. Like, if it impacts 5 to 10%, like, that would not be ideal in an offense that we don't think is really going to look that great. Yeah. If you look at Njoku, really, his breakouts have coincided with him finally having a full-time role. If we go back to his, rookie season, he had a 78% route participation. He finished as the tight end 14, but then that fell off to 39%. You guys remember they went and signed Austin Hooper after drafting David Njoku. And the next year it was 54%, also still sharing time with Austin Hooper. And then we got rid of Austin Hooper, and what happens? The route participation goes back up, 79%, 79%, 77%, and those have been the tight end 8, 6, and 6 finishes in fantasy points per game for players that played at least 8 games in the season. So David Njoku, like, good player. We just need the playing time. I'm with you. I tend to lean towards, when I look at this roster and the way it's made up, there's a lot of other ways to get Harold Fannin Jr. on the field. Why take David Njoku off? He is one of your best players, but we don't always know what coaches are going to do. So I think there is a little bit of risk that we could see Njoku's route participation come down. I'm with you. If I had to choose one way or another, I think he's pretty safe, and they find another way to get those snaps for Harold Fannin Jr.
My tight end 6, Dwayne's tight end 7. We are the highest of the Fantasy Life rankers. Feeling confident about that. You mentioned Fannin as your tight end 3. Is that still persisting in terms of rookie drafts where, yes, obviously we are going to be prioritizing Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren at the top, but Terrence Ferguson found himself a nice home in Los Angeles. Have a few other day 2 guys. Still sticking with Fannin, even though, again, landing spot-wise, not ideal, at least in year 1.
Yep. Yeah, and the Browns could lean towards getting out of Njoku sooner rather than later. He carries a pretty big cap hit. So I think Harold Fannin Jr., I'm going to go ahead and bet on the talent, not on the landing spot. Like, it's valuable to get a landing spot where we know these guys get early playing time because we get a quick read on them. Are they good or are they not good? We're probably not going to get that read with Harold Fannin Jr. this year. But again, he's a pretty special profile, in my opinion, as far as what he can do in the receiving game. So I am going to take him over Terrence Ferguson. I am also going to take him over Mason Taylor for the Jets. So he is my number 3 guy, to your point, behind Colston Loveland, then Ty Warren, then Harold Fannin Jr. in rookie drafts.
As great as Njoku was last season, he was not the number one pass catcher on the Browns. That honor went to Mr. Jerry Jeudy, who started off awfully slow, but man, post Amari Cooper trade and then post Deshaun Watson Achilles injury, we saw this dude go off, man. And obviously Cedric Tillman was in there for a bit too, and then he went down. So yeah, Njoku was even hurt by the end. So I understand there were not many other avenues to go with the football, but just this shocked me, man. Both Jerry Jeudy and Puka Nacua played 10 games from week 8 through 18. 963 yards, 3 touchdowns for Jeudy, 955 yards, 3 touchdowns for Puka. They had 103 and 102 targets. Again, who's the better receiver? Puka by a freaking country mile. But hey, fantasy points count the same regardless of the style in which they're achieved. And Jeudy was able to rack up a lot of them last year. Have you been going out of your way to draft Jeudy, Dwain, at his wide receiver 3 price tag? Because I will say, I try to hold myself accountable here on the Fantasy Life Show. A lot of the reasons I hype up Calvin Ridley and just having all these potential targets, I like Cam Ward a heck of a lot more of the upside there than, anyone else in this offense. But hey, some smart people did think Shedeur Sanders, deserved to be up there in that conversation. Are we sleeping on Jeudy potentially still having the potential to really, provide some upside at that low cost?
I think he's pretty much priced right. So to your point, like a great end of the year for Jerry Jeudy. Yeah. Can't take it away. But he also got the Jameis Winston bump. And to your point with some of the other targets and stuff going down. And we've just seen Winston do this for multiple players. Here's my big challenge with Jerry Jeudy. If we go to the underlying data points, still a 20% targets per route run last year. That's a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3. The year before, 18. The year before that, 22, 21, 20, 21. So looks more like a wide receiver 3 to a wide receiver 4 from a talent profile perspective. Also yards per route run, 1.72, 1.65, 2.18, 1.85, 1.66. I think you kind of see a trend. Like he's a 1.7 to a 1.8. That's also more of a wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4. I will give you this, even though we're heading into year 6 of Jerry Jeudy, dude's only going to be 26 years old. I mean, he came into the league as a 21-year-old rookie, so still young, could still be ascending. But then I go look at the fantasy points per game as well, Ian. And he ranked, and again, this is a minimum of 8 games played. I'm talking PPR. He was the 55th player as a rookie. Then he ranked 60th in his sophomore season with 8.5 fantasy points per game. Then he had a little spike year. Remember at the end of that year with Russ Wilson, did kind of something like what we're talking about here at the end of the year with Jameis. And so we kind of got a little excited. We're like, okay, we see some signs. It was a year 3 player, still really young. So 13.7 fantasy points per game. He ranked 19th in PPR that year. Then it fell back off to 8.9. And he was the 56th wide receiver. So now we get another year where it's kind of like that Russ Wilson year, but it was with Jameis where it was 13.9. And he ultimately finishes as the wide receiver 28 going by the parameters that I'm using in PPR per game. So I'm just not going out of my way. Do I see a path, to your point, where he could be the lead target earner and somehow the quarterback room goes right in a way that we don't foresee it and this offense plays better than we think? Yeah, in that scenario, I think that Jerry Jeudy could pay off. But at this point, I think we've seen, the problem is we've never seen the consistency. We see the brief glimpses of Jerry Jeudy like over a stretch of 4 to 6 games where we're like, oh my God, there's the first round pick. That's why Jerry Jeudy is a first round pick. But really the problem is we got like 16 to 18 games of that over his entire career. And the rest of the time he's really been more of a disappointment. So I'm with you. I like Calvin Ridley better. Even though I think Calvin Ridley has his issues, I think he's been a more consistent player than Jerry Jeudy. I also like the fact that he's got Cam Ward instead of the quarterback situation that we have here. So I have not been going out of my way for Jerry Jeudy. Here's what I'll say. And I don't want to, Jerry Jeudy is really tough for me in redraft because I won't ever know when to play him. I do think in best ball, Jerry Judy's probably going to give you 4 or 5 spike games, which is fine for where he's going right now in drafts. Like he's going to be on the field. Jerry Judy's probably going to get an 85 to 92% route participation, and he's going to run into some games. You don't have to pick when they're going to be. So like him better as a best ball pick than I do a managed league pick where I think he becomes a real headache.
I will say I was a little underwhelmed going back and watching his tape because, early on in his career, man, rookie season, Jerry Jeudy, I mean, some of the route running chops, I know the Alabama film was incredible as well, really did look like that he was going to be on his way to being one of the next great NFL receivers. Obviously just had over 1,200 yards. That doesn't happen by accident, but man, had obviously the huge performance against the Broncos where they kind of refused to move Surtain over to him for some reason. Also big game against the Saints. Don't want to say the 90-yard touchdown was a complete fluke, but I don't know, a little bit going on there. And then just down the stretch, Dwayne, even after Jameis was out of the picture, I mean, just Wan'Dale Robinson has stat lines here in terms of the inability to convert these targets into yards. We're talking about 18 targets for 94 yards against the Dolphins, 13 for 63 against a bad Ravens secondary, got 108 on 14 versus the Chiefs. But it was a lot of real short area stuff where, I don't know, I think it was DTR probably taking 5 yards on 3rd and 12 because he was just terrified of what could happen otherwise. So again, was underwhelmed when I kind of went back to it. And I also don't love at not how bad, but the target discrepancy when Cedric Tillman was still active, man. You look, post-Amari Cooper trade, while Tillman was active, week 7 through 11, number 1 target on the Browns was Tillman with 40 targets. Yep. Number 2 was Njoku with 37. Number 3 was Jeudy with 36. Elijah Moore was right there with 35. So I understand Elijah is out of the picture now. It was a small sample from Tillman, but we probably shouldn't completely discount Diontae Johnson working into this. He's someone we've been high on over the years. I just struggle to think the Browns are going to be the organization to get his head on straight when the Texans and the Ravens weren't able to do it last year. But again, it's possible. And just as a straight up talent, man, we have seen Diontae accomplish more than Jeudy before last season. So I'm with you. Not exactly someone I've been going out of my way for. With that said, do you just take the cheaper option, Cedric Tillman?
Yeah, I've drafted way more Cedric Tillman than Jerry Jeudy. I feel pretty good about his role, too. I think there's a little bit of risk with Diontae Johnson, but based off what we've heard early is him potentially playing that slot role, although we know Diontae can play on the outside. So I feel like Tillman's locked into the 3 wide receiver sets. The question is, will he be in the 2 wide receiver sets, or will that be some sort of a rotation between him and Diontae Johnson? Right now, I'm leaning towards Tillman because he was, he did flash, to your point, down the stretch last year. So I'm thinking he's going to have an 80-85% route participation. For where you get him in drafts and the fact that he still is a young player that showed flashes last year of potentially ascending to a new level, Tillman is actually my favorite wide receiver pick of the Browns. My favorite pick on the Browns right now is David Njoku. My favorite wide receiver pick is Cedric Tillman.
Tillman's one of my top 3 most drafted wide receivers, so we are in lockstep. He had 3 straight top 15 finishes, week 7, week 8, week 9. Bengals, Ravens, Chargers, maybe not the world's best cornerback rooms, but again, you do watch the film, and the guy was winning his fair share of contested balls, had the day 2 draft capital to begin with. I do think that his role is going to be fairly cemented as that, X receiver. We'll see if he can, again, get things going, hopefully with plenty of Joe Flacco under center. Have you been throwing like a last round dart at Diontae Johnson? I haven't. I can see the scenario, I guess. Okay.
I have some. I mean, it's risky because he could just be a complete doofus and get cut. But right now, I and everything we're hearing, and we know he's talented. I feel like he's got the inside track, and you're getting with the last pick. So I have mixed some of it in. And I do think he's a name that we could see. I don't think he's going to ever climb a ton because people have got this Diontae distrust, and for good reasons. Right. But I do think that there's a chance that by the time, we're drafting these teams in August and we're really hearing from training camp that Diontae Johnson's locked in as the wide receiver 3, then people are going to start thinking, man, what if he takes over the wide receiver 2? So he's going to move up in draft. So I think he's a good enough player that he's worth taking a few stabs on. I look at that as being a little bit different than some of these late round, 4th or 5th round rookies that we don't know will have any playing time. And Diontae Johnson at least has shown us at NFL level he can be an NFL caliber player. It's just a matter of, does he have his head on straight this year for the Browns? I'm with you. Can the Browns be the team to do it? You have to have a feeling that things aren't going to go the way Diontae wants, as far as probably playing time and targets. We know that in the past has kind of set him off. And so there's risk with it. But the level of talent for Diontae, where you're getting him, I have taken him a few times with that very last pick.
Because, no one else going in round 18 has put forward the production we've seen from Diontae. So, again, I have not been clicking it, but I do want to have at least a few of them out there by the end of
I mix him and Keenan Allen up. Keenan Allen's the other name that I'm he's probably going to sign somewhere. And when he does, he's going to turn to a round 13 pick. Depending on where he lands, if it's because a starter went down, Keenan could climb even more. I know he wasn't that great on his targets last year, but still was a big target earner. So I kind of look at him and Diontae Johnson as being the 2. Amari Cooper, you could talk about, but he took such a downturn last year and the way his play looked, even once he got to the Bills. He's a guy you could talk about maybe being in that conversation, but I'm a little less confident in his talent profile at this point in his career after what we saw last year.
I am with you there, my friend. Well, okay, guys, got through the wide receivers. Now let's get to maybe some more exciting prospects here. It's the running back room, and hey, maybe one is ready to break out.
Yeah, it's our breakout watch. We're getting the binoculars out, Ian, because we got to take a close look. Presented by none other than Bud Light. Look at this. Ian's got the binoculars on. Ian, what are you seeing here? We're going to talk about Quinshon Judkins. Think about how do we want to project this workload. Obviously, like I've done some of the lifting on that already. But what are your takes on a guy? We just talked about an offense with the Browns that we're not necessarily crazy about. We've also talked about the fact that you have done some research here recently that, funny enough, started off as kicker research, but really your main takeaway ended up being that, hey, how many touchdowns these offenses score doesn't matter as much for wide receivers and tight ends, but for quarterbacks and for the running backs, it really is a factor. Brown's not an offense we're loving. So where are you landing on Mr. Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State, Ian? So let's see the true colors here. You're usually going with the Ohio State guy. So I'm going to see if you can hold up here.
National championship winner Quinshon Judkins to you, Dwain. But sadly, I have not been making a habit of going too hard with Mr. Judkins. Now, look, again, you did mention the kind of correlations I was looking at between top tier scoring offenses and corresponding, top tier elite fantasy performers. And yeah, quarterback and running back way more correlated again with wanting to have that top scoring offense. Wide receiver, tight end were much closer to zero. Kickers actually negative. So if you guys are into that kind of thing, go ahead and look for the guys more so in the mediocre 10 to 15 ranked scoring offense range. But just overall, I'm not overly convinced with the Kevin Stefanski system. And you brought up a good point in one of these last podcasts, Dwain, and just kind of talking about trusting the talent over the scheme sometimes. So I get that. But man, Nick freaking Chubb, prime Nick Chubb, couldn't exactly get, the workhorse 3-down role that we wanted to see him from in the Stefanski offense. And I understand we had a good version of Kareem Hunt behind him at that point, but the RB1 for Kevin Stefanski over these past 5 years. Jerome Ford last year, only 141 touches. Jerome Ford the year before, 248. Chubb before that, did get up to 329 one year when he did have some good health. Kareem Hunt, maybe not the same beast that season. Before that, just 248 for Chubb. And then Kareem Hunt, 236 the year before that. So I think there's going to be multiple running backs involved. And once we start dividing up that pie, how many touchdowns really are there going to be to go around? So Judkins, he's a capable pass catcher. I think he's a lot of fun to watch run the ball. My comp from day one has been Gen Z, Marion Barber. Also has very, familiar actually RAS scores and just testing as Barber. But it is a situation where, again, more so the catch to check down type of guy, not someone who's going to be a complete weapon out of the backfield. They also used the round 4 pick on Dylan Sampson, someone who I know a lot of, draft minds actually thought could be a day 2 guy. And Jerome Ford, he's not dead, man. Look at some of his numbers from last year. The rushing yards over expected, stuff that we use to praise other running backs. You actually do see Jerome Ford up there. I know he's more boomer busty than other running backs, but a lot of running backs are bust or bust, all right? The fact that Ford can actually break these 50-yard runs, I do think is meaningful. So I'm seeing an offense that is probably going to be bottom 10, if not bottom 5 in scoring, using 2 or 3 running backs. That's tough for me to sign up for when Judkins is going as a low-end RB2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of outcomes, but I do think on the table is Judkins just takes over the whole backfield. Like, I think he's a good player. The way he ranks in the rookie supermodel is good. Dylan Sampson, yeah, we like him, but he was a round 4 pick. Jerome Ford, yeah, we like him, but they just constantly try to replace him, and I mean, the last 2 years, they should have given Jerome Ford the ball more, and they just never did. So what makes me think that they're suddenly going to do that now? So I want to bet on the talent. I do. My biggest concern is the overall offense and how many touchdowns we could get from Judkins. I'm a little bit more bullish on Stefanski as a play caller. And if we go back, several years, we have seen these offenses where he has really tried to win through efficiency, ground and pound the ball more, and then win through play action. I hear you on giving those comps, but I do really think that there's some pretty extreme examples there because of how good Kareem Hunt was in that stretch with Nick Chubb. We had a few injuries and things going on. Not trying to totally dismiss what you said, but I think there were certainly some factors here. And then the main thing thing is when I just look at Quinshon Judkins, look at him in the supermodel, look at his rating, and then we look at his comparisons going back to 2017, man, it's really good. Running backs in his group that went on to give you a top 6 finish in their first 3 seasons in the NFL, 18% of them. So almost 1 in 5. Top 12 finishes, 45% of these guys. So almost half of them went on to become running back ones. And we know with running backs, they can do it very early in their career. Running top 24 running back finishes, 70% of these guys. So 2 out of 3 ended up being top 24 guys, and almost all of them at least made it to being a top 36 running back, 91%. So really good hit rates here on Judkins. I look at this, room, and I think it could go the way you said, where it's like, everybody's sharing, but if I also squint and look at it, I was like, it's also the kind of room where it could all just go to Quinshon. Like, I really think both potential scenarios are in play. If he does end up in this massive time split and an offense that we don't think is going to be very good, it's not going to be great. But here's the really good thing with Quinshon Judkins in my mind, Ian. You're not having to pay huge prices on him. I get it. He is going ahead of some other guys that you might like at the running back position. But if we look at historically where some of these running backs that we think are stepping into starting roles as rookies that are talented, like the way that we think about Quinshon Judkins, I don't think the price is too bad. I mean, Caleb Johnson's going pick 75. Quinshon Judkins is pick 74. I mean, Quinshon Judkins is a way better prospect than Caleb Johnson. And are the Steelers that much better of an offense than the Browns? Like, we know Aaron Rodgers could be more of a stabilizing factor, but like, there's issues there. You got David Montgomery going ahead of Quinshon Judkins right now on a great offense, sharing some time. So I get it. You got James Conner going 10 picks ahead. So it's not like you're having to take him ahead of these other players. You're getting to take him after some of those. So here are the running backs you're taking Quinshon Judkins ahead of. You're having to take him a couple picks ahead of Caleb Johnson. I'm fine with that. Here's the one I know you're going to say no on. You're going to poo-poo it. You got to take him 2 picks ahead of DeAndre Swift, Ian. You've got to take him 7 picks ahead of Isaiah Pacheco. And I think you can make an argument that Pacheco could outscore Quinshon Judkins. But I think Quinshon Judkins is a more talented player than Isaiah Pacheco. And then you look at Tony Pollard. You look at Aaron Jones. So I think he's actually in a range where, man, I feel like the price is pretty reasonable. I think the concerns around the offense are pretty baked in right now on Underdog, being able to get this guy at pick 74. I'm down for it. I'm drafting Travion Henderson more, but I am also drafting Quinshon Judkins. And just real quickly, and you can give me your response here, but if we look at the ceiling projection based on what I've got the backfield projected for. And again, I'm like Ian, I'm not just saying, it's 70% Quinshon Judkins. I'm giving like half the rushing attempts. If you look at his ceiling outcome at 16.8 fantasy points per game, which would be a running back 1 in most years in PPR, his median outcome is 11, and his floor, obviously baking in the challenges with the offense, is 8.6. If he gives you 8.6 fantasy points, even if you draft him in round 7, that still sucks. But I think the price is pretty good for the potential upside that you get from Quinshon.
So Quinshon, other than obviously Hampton and Genty, actually is my highest ranked rookie running back. But the problem is the names that you listed that are going a little bit behind him. I do have Pacheco, Swift, Aaron Jones even, and also James Conner and Demont going ahead of him. So that's more so been the reason why I haven't drafted a ton of them. So I do hear you in terms of Jerome Ford never being this guy that I think the Browns seriously thought could handle the whole backfield. And man, I mean, Kareem Hunt there for a stretch really was an awesome running back, one of the better RB2s in the league. So even though Chubb was posting, these RB18, RB22 utilization scores, hey, maybe now that Hunt and Chubb aren't there, Judkins gets more. So I do see the, again, path, but for me, just been more so willing to embrace the veteran running backs and what I do think will be better overall offenses. Last question, though, here, Dwayne. I've gotten asked this before. Dynasty rookie draft. You're on the clock. Judkins or Henderson? I'm
taking Henderson. I just think that the ultimate ceiling with Henderson with the big playability is slightly higher. They're very close. I don't think there's a wrong answer to it. They're very close in their range of outcomes when you look at them in the supermodel. I do lean to Quinshon Judkins. One last thing I'll say is I only gave him 56% of the carries. So I'm not saying that Quinshon comes out and takes over this backfield with 70%. I got 24% still going to Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson, to your point, another guy that the rookie supermodel liked. I've got it 20%, which is higher than most places. If you go look at projections, I'm probably one of the higher projections factors on Dylan Sampson. So I think there's definitely some competition, but the beauty is that ceiling and floor logic, it's starting with this 56%, right? And then it's painting in a ceiling and a floor from there. So that's what really makes me feel good about Quinshon Judkins. Really good player. Might he only score 6 or 8 touchdowns? Yeah, it's possible, but I think he could easily offset that by being a guy that gets 65% of the rushing attempts and catches more balls than what we think. So I'm going to continue to take him ahead of guys like Aaron Jones, Pacheco again. And I like those guys, but I am going to take Quinshon Judkins over them.
And I also am going Henderson over Judkins in Dynasty Land. But yeah, man, a lot of breakouts to watch for. Let's just say that.
All right. And that has been the Bud Light Breakout Watch on running backs. All right, folks. Okay, NFL fans, sure, the NFL season may be long over, but this next season action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it. And all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change, and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
All right, Dwain, time to close things out with a little bit of quarterback talk because there are 4 involved parties who feasibly could be starting games at one point or another for the 2025 Browns. We have Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old veteran, who does seem to be the front runner at this point. Behind him, Kenny Pickett, who allegedly was getting first-team snaps for whatever reason earlier this offseason. Dylan Gabriel, who did end up getting drafted in the 3rd round for a reason. And, of course, Shedeur Sanders, who in most people's minds, even the ones that were low on this guy, still considered him to be at worst a day 2 prospect and someone I think unanimously, for the most part, was ranked ahead of Dylan Gabriel. So for my money's worth, I would think Flacco is going to be the top guy, and he's going to have every chance to hold on to that job until the wheels fall off or this team just becomes painfully uncompetitive. I give Sanders the second best chance. I don't really think either guy is going to be worth much in fantasy land because of the complete lack of rushing inside an offense that wants to run the ball plenty with their backs. Also could be a good defense for the Browns. Anytime you got Myles Garrett, that is on the table. So long story short, I think we want Joe Flacco the most. Do I think if I had to set a Vegas line on, the amount of games he starts, I'd probably say 8.5, and I want to take the over, but man, I think it's anyone's guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns would have to come out and definitely outproduce what we're about to talk about, which is the over-under on the win total that's been set by Vegas. They would have to outperform that for Joe Flacco to ultimately get a lot of games. Now, I do have him with you projected for the most right now because there's also a path, though, that Flacco comes in, plays 6 games, they stink, and Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel so god awful they have to go back to Flacco later in the year. We can't always predict how these things are gonna go. We think that we've got this nice clear path. Well, it'll be Flacco early, and then it'll probably be Dylan Gabriel, and because they spent the better pick, and then it's just going to be Shedeur Sanders to finish the year. Sure, that's one scenario, but there's 20 others that could work out. So I do agree with you. I would go with Flacco as being the guy that will lead the team in game started. As far as picking the person that's going to come in behind, man, your guess is as good as mine. It's going to be Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to pick one of those 2 players. I would lean towards Shedeur like you would. I'm similar to the sentiment out there that great, Shedeur Sanders, yes, he fell. But I'm sorry, he's still a better NFL draft prospect than Dylan Gabriel. I get it. The team took Dylan Gabriel over him, but I think some of the reasons that Shedeur Sanders fell were more towards attitude, the way that he handled team interviews, things like that. I don't think it's as much that it's because they think Dylan Gabriel is a better football player than Shedeur Sanders. So in my mind, that puts Shedeur Sanders in the driver's seat, in the driver's seat. Dude, clean up your act. Stop acting like an idiot. Just put your head down, go to work. You're the better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. So I'm with you. I would go with Shedeur Sanders second, but I do think that it's Flacco. And I think the best run out for this team is they do somehow surprise and we're setting up here, and they're 8-4 and Flacco's the starter and they're trying to hang in there and they're trying to continue to win games to get into the playoffs. And Flacco actually ends up playing the whole season. Like that's the ultimate run out where I think some of these things that we've talked about, because in that scenario, they're playing tighter games. They're running the ball. Suddenly, Quinshon Judkins probably has a shot at scoring 10 rushing touchdowns, something that we don't think's in his range of outcomes today. So I'm with you. I'll go with Flacco. I also think the longer Flacco starts, the better it is for all the players that we've talked about today.
This is a situation where I wasn't particularly high on Shedeur in the pre-draft process. Some of my comps were Jacoby Brissett in a nice way, the old man version of Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold with average arm strength. Those aren't good. I get it. He has ice in the veins, all right? Clutch factor. Dude is so tough out there. Take the amount of sacks he did at Colorado and then just pop back up. And let's face it, wasn't exactly in the world's greatest environment what that offense was doing. Yeah, Travis Hunter was making a ton of great plays. I get that, but wasn't exactly, a situation where I think he was being put in a position to overly succeed. But man, to just have a quarterback in 2025 without any defining elite physical traits, I really just think that puts you back up against the wall. And now you have to win on pure processing and stuff on a team that Bernie Kosar, is that our last great quarterback that's put together any sort of stretch, Dwayne? Baker Mayfield has become good, but man, even in Cleveland, it was up and down because of the discontinuity in the organization. It comes back to the Deontay Johnson point. It's like, even if you want to believe in Shedeur, I just have such a hard time thinking that this is the organization that's going to bring it out of him. Hopefully I'm wrong, because the NFL is more fun when there are more good quarterbacks in it. But Dwayne, that is going to take us to that lowly win total. It is sitting at just 5.5, one of the lowest marks in the league. Browns joined the Giants, Titans, Jets, and Saints as the only teams there. I'm going under. I think this offense is going to be a bottom 5 group in the league. And man, just when you have the potential for turnovers with someone like Flacco, who isn't, he's really more Jameis, I think, than anyone else on this team, where we're going to see some highs, but there's going to be some turnover-induced lows as well. I think that could help cancel out what could otherwise still be a pretty good defense. So give me under 5.5. I would not be surprised in the least if the Browns are picking number 1 next year.
I'm going to go under. I really do hope that they come out and become this more run balanced team and then really try to win these close games. They do still have players on defense, with Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. Like, they've got pieces, right, that can truly allow you to do some things even against some of the better offenses in the NFL. So I think there's a path to beating this, but when your starting quarterback room is you don't know, like, you just have to lean to the under, man. You just got to go with the under with a quarterback room like this. As much as we can talk about all these other components and coaching and the different ways that it could play out that they could hit the over, it's the quarterback room that's the problem right now, because you don't know if you have something that can carry you through the season.
For the sake of most of my Ohio friends, I do hope the Browns manage to exceed his expectations. But yes, Dwayne and myself taking the under for meow. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Life Show. We invite you guys to like and subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. And certainly check out the rest of our team previews as we continue to roll them out during these dog days in June. So for Dwayne, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in to the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.